Welcome back, mere mortals. We are outside
Mere Mortalites,
in South
Juan.
Bank. Oh, mere mortalites. My apologies, folks. Mere mortalites. We're back outside in South Bank. We're back in the wonderful outdoors. Not that we haven't been already.
Yeah,
but we haven't been in this area.
I've missed
of town
here.
for a bit. We have.
I've missed here. I've missed the spiders.
Talking about it.
Two
Yeah.
spiders already. One on here on the bench, and then actually it might have been the same spider. It's really quick. It's one of those jumping spiders. Where it's just
I hate those.
super quick movements. You have no idea where he's going, what he's going to do, how far he's going. Like you try and blow it away, and it's like, okay,
Already gone.
is this going to move 20 centimeters, or is this going to jump
2 meters.
up my asshole?
So today, folks, as you might be, we might be alluding here in the conversation, is Meanderings. We're going to be talking
We start off strong.
a little bit of crap, or whatever else comes to mind. However, I've got some very deep questions for you.
Damn.
But I want to keep it. I wanted to bring them up in Meanderings because it's the Meanderings. You have to actually meander through these particular questions. So some big questions that I want to raise to you.
Mine's about dreaming.
Dreaming.
So
Okay.
I had a funny dream.
Okay. Tell me about the funny dream first. Let's get funny dreams. Start with that.
I'm going to try and explain this the best way I can. So the problem with these is, I wake up in the morning, I've had this crazy-ass dream, I write it down in my notes, and then...
Can you explain to people, though, because we have some mere mortalites that maybe haven't listened to some of the older ones. So how are you taking notes right now of dreams? Because I think even telling people like, oh, yeah, I took notes of my dreams would be like, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, okay. So when I was going through the lucid dreaming phase, which I'll probably come back to, I think I've gone through 2 phases of doing it. Essentially, lucid dreaming is when you wake up, you're conscious in your own dream, so you realize you're dreaming. The problem with dreams is you're in there, you're acting like yourself for the most part, or you recognize yourself as your own body. So I'm Kyron in my dream, even though I might be in the body of another person, or I might, there's crazy stuff going on, but you just go along with it. Lucid dreaming is waking up in that dream. And so in any case, to recognize that you're lucid dreaming, one, you have to be able to remember your dreams really well, and then you have to do all of these reality tests to show, to prove to yourself, oh wait, this is a dream. And the remembering part, well, you have to get good at remembering the dream, and so the best way to do that is just to write it down as soon as you wake up. Yep. So I've got a book out there which has not exquisite detail on all of my dreams, but I would try and capture as many as I could.
All the details that you can.
And so usually I'd wake up right at the start, and I couldn't remember the dream, or I'd only have 1, maybe 2. By the end, I was remembering 4 or 5 separate dreams,
all from the one night
per
session.
night.
Yep.
So you get good at remembering this stuff. So when I say I took notes, I woke up and I just wrote a couple of things down.
So what was the funny dream?
Okay, so I had a dream this week. One MLK impression there. So imagine a mix of brutal gore, lone heroine, and the old shunned blind whore. So essentially, I'm going to try and have to just reference a couple of movies you probably haven't seen to describe it.
Most definitely.
But basic scenario, imagine you're in the wilderness I'll say, imagine like a Danish forest. So there's lots of trees and stuff, but you imagine it's in Denmark. They've got a lot of green grass growing around, and there's hills as well. So you're in that sort of scenario, and there's almost like an encampment there of think of like one old log cabin, maybe with an electrified fence. I'm talking maybe 30 meters by 40 meters in length.
Okay.
And then outside of that is just wilderness and, sort of sparse wilderness.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in my dream, essentially, I remember being there, and I can't remember if I was the narrator looking in, the sort of third party, or if I was the girl. But in any case, there's this girl there, and there's all these monsters around. So if you know the anime Parasite...
No. Maybe I've heard of it, but not that I know anything.
Essentially, it's I don't know it that well either, but I just remember there's human beings, and then they've actually got parasites in them, and they go crazy and develop, wiggling tentacles everywhere, huge misshapen mouths that can get you, all sorts of big, small, whatever creatures there are. So they're all around in the outside, and they can't attack inside of it yet, but bad things are going to happen, like the electric fences running out, there's maybe 5 or 6 people who randomly come across this encampment, and we're gradually like forming a little thing, but we all know we're going to die. We have no chance. So in that sense, it's sort of like Bird Box, where there's people in a house, there's bad things outside, and people randomly come into it.
Yep.
But you still know you're pretty screwed. The food's going to run out. The monsters will get inside.
You're going to die
somehow.
eventually.
So there was just all this random stuff. Cloverfield for the visual shot. So this is what it visually looked like for me.
Right, okay.
You wouldn't get huge glimpses of the monsters that are wandering outside. It's sort of like, clip and you just catch their leg or this thing just happens. And then the last one was the cabin in the woods for the monsters. So the monsters weren't just humans that transform and have tentacles. They could be a unicorn which actually stabs you with its horn. It could be fairies or like the Bird Box creatures where you never see them but they get you. As soon as you look at them, you go crazy. Those sorts of things. The main thing I want to bring up with this was I've had this before where I've had dreams that are just so intense and so crazy, and you think, this should be a movie. I should make a movie out of this. This is a fantastic...
Well,
this is so...
I'm sure it's how some movies have been made.
Potentially, but then you get to the problem, which is I don't know how to write a movie script. I know what it looked like visually in my head, but me trying to explain it right now is obviously dulling the experience. So I'm just wondering, if there was a dream recording device, do you think you could actually just make movies out of that? Do you think it would be good enough? Would what I saw in my dream, would that be good enough to then just post as a movie somewhere and be like, hey, check out this shit? Or would it just be too incoherent that even I watching it nowadays would be like, and when I say nowadays, I mean in real conscious life, just look at it and go, what the fuck is this?
I'm going towards the latter. And I even think that as you're interpreting the dream that would be displayed in that scene, like you're talking Cloverfield, this is how I would see it in all these perspectives. Like, I don't know how much of that would be captured by a dream reader, because like the dream reader would have to also capture like your emotions, your feelings behind it, all of these other things which are personalized to you.
Yeah. So
like you're retelling that, and it feels exactly what happened. It's still a little bit like, so what? Like, where's the story? Where's the idea there?
Yeah.
Maybe you could kind of make it up, but it's never as intense as what you would be envisioning when you had the dream.
That's
when
a
you
good
woke
point.
up.
So I'm just thinking about the visuals right now, and maybe even some of the noises. But for me, dreams are more just really impact visually. But yeah, you're right. I was definitely interpreting that in my own head while that was going on, and now while I'm describing it, it almost feels like it's part of the story, but implicitly, if you were to watch that same thing, you'd probably come out of it and be like, I don't know, this is about a daycare or some shit. Like, I don't know.
Something completely different. So yeah, I do get the reference though, because I do think that sometimes you'll have dreams where it's like, oh wow, you could totally just make it into a book. You could make it into something. Like, this is
the
an
best idea
but
out.
I think sometimes when you note it down and then you even reflect on it, I might have had that exact experience as well, where there was one particular dream where I thought, oh, this is like book worthy, and I noted down some things only for maybe reflecting on it a couple of days later and be like, oh no, that doesn't sound as cool. Maybe it wasn't as intense as in that moment that I was in it. So okay. And look, and I was going to say, actually, the thing that most interested me from what you were saying was that you dream and then in the perspective of somebody else, but still know that it's you.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, I've never dreamed ever that I've not been myself.
Okay.
Like, I've never had a dream where I'm like another human or an object, maybe from a different perspective, but never really outside my own body, I guess.
Yeah, no, I've definitely dreamed ones where it's Chiron, but it's a Chiron in the shell of another person.
Gotcha.
So I don't think I've ever had one where...
Wait, Chiron is a shell, or Chiron is like the embodiment?
It can be a girl, but it's me inside of there. It's Chiron inside of there. It's not...
So it's the embodiment of Chiron inside a shell.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not like my... let's just put it this way. If you downloaded my consciousness into a machine, it's sort of that thing. Whatever that is inside of the machine, that's what it is in the dream. So it's Chiron in there, what I would call Chiron. If I chop off my arm, I'm still Chiron, even though I don't have an arm, sort of thing. That. But I don't think I've ever woken up and realized, like, holy shit, I'm now X person. I think it's always been me there, just in different forms of some sort, whether that's bodiless, in my own body someone else's
Something
body.
else. Okay.
But just while we're on this, actually, so I mentioned Matt. It was not Max Walker, Matt Walker on the Lex Fridman podcast.
Matt Walker. There you go. Okay.
And he was actually talking about when you get down to it, dreams are such a bizarre thing. I mean, we all know this, but he laid it out in a set of sort of like 5 maximum or 5 reasons why. And he was talking. One of those was that you recognize that it is a almost like out of body experience, a consciousness bending thing that's going on there. And it's funny how he described it, because he's just like, yeah, you know what, you are absolutely insane while you
doing
are
this.
if someone said if someone was experiencing those same things but in real life, you would just tick off all the boxes of insanity. You'd be like, you know, just seeing things that aren't potentially there, adding meaning onto things, accepting of random occurrences just like it's normal.
You'd be like, oh, it's insanity.
Yeah.
Actually, Jocko, one of the latest, one of the Underground podcasts, actually was talking about how even like day-to-day experiences as well, you could technically say everyone's insane because you're seeing meaning in things that nobody else really is seeing. So it's like, well, that would be classified as insanity if compared to the rest of humanity. But to you, it's totally fine. So, I agree. I think that insanity is maybe too broad a word. It could be more dialed in for dreams.
Insanity is a strong word. I would use insanity for people who can't operate in this world, I would say. As in, you leave them to their own devices, and they're either going to hurt people or hurt themselves. I would say that is roughly sanity, but I would absolutely feel comfortable calling everyone crazy. And it's just what type of crazy you are. There's the crazy that's really funny and interesting. There's the crazy where, and you have to be crazy because that's sort of what life is about. There's paradox, and you have to accept it. And the only way to accept it is to believe
to be a little bit crazy.
This thing in this time, this thing at another time, and maybe both things at the same time, even though they're contradictory.
That's true. Look, we're going in the right theme of mindset here. So I thought let's bring up a couple of questions which maybe gets to know the mere mortals might get to know us a little bit better. Yeah, okay. I don't know if we've asked these particular questions. So I want to ask you, and I can share mine as well. What is the meaning of life?
Damn.
He's
done it.
So there's 2 questions actually. Ready? What is the meaning of life? And what is love? Because that's a very, and it's a tricky question. I have to think about it for a little while. So maybe I'll give my spiel first, and let you just think it through. All right. So I took some notes. I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to forget some of this. So first of all, for me, the meaning of life, folks. The meaning of life. For me, it was to balance the unavoidable suffering.
I just love we're doing this in meanderings.
So. Exactly. So and that's why I was like, oh, it's got to be a meandering. Just this is going to go like into all sorts of random shit. Can't go into music. Balance the unavoidable suffering.
Okay.
With the self-applied suffering and bliss, with a focus on suffering that you can reduce for others. So that was my little cross the board. It's like you know, there's like 3 circles with like maybe like another 4th point ahead with the North Star or something. So it's what's life's meaning? To balance unavoidable suffering with the self-imposed suffering and bliss while focusing on reducing suffering for others.
Okay.
That was kind of like my take.
Yeah. So there's some implicit assumptions there, and you can actually see these in the religions if you want. Undeniable suffering. That's usually Buddhism is the strong one, or unavoidable suffering, I should say. There's the doing the good, aiming towards the North Star. That's usually in most religions. That's their claim to divinity, their claim to why you should follow this. And the middle one was, that's almost like psychology in a way, just recognizing that you've got bad things going on. You can make things worse, I suppose, by how you treat the world.
True. Yeah. And this was, and I'm coming at it from a perspective of as an individual, not scientific. Because I was like, oh, scientific, I'll just be like procreation, like pure and simple. It's just for you to pass on your genes, keep it on going in your lineage. That's like from a pure basis. Even like remove food, remove sleeping, and all the Maslow's like base needs. All you want to do is like a species. You just want to keep procreating and allow your genes to pass through.
Yeah, even that I'm skeptical of now. Just especially talking about the sperm donation one. Why don't we do it? It's so, if that was all that mattered, that's even not even if that was all that mattered, if that was 99% of what mattered, I still don't see why basically every guy would be doing it. So,
well, I do still think that it's now. I guess now as a species, I would say that's very much a subconscious or genetically imbued thing, which we're just completely overriding by conscious thoughts that we may have around it. So, at some extent, whether you want it or not, you're going to go through the evolution of turning into an adult.
Maybe it's too removed. Evolution's really good for the getting your genes to the next generation is really good when it's the ancestor tribal sort of shit. But when it's the nuances of going to some sort of random place, not seeing immediate payoff in terms of sex, and then also maybe it'll be in 8 months' time where you get the news like, oh yeah, your sperm's actually been used elsewhere. So
I also think that. And I said it, so my meaning of life was unavoidable suffering, balance with self-implied suffering, and bliss. And I'm saying this as well in the point of view where it's like you're in a state where you can apply all of those things. Because it made me reminisce on Viktor Frankl's meaning of life. And it's like, okay, well, you can't do that if you're like in a camp, right? If you're in like a Holocaust camp or you're somewhere it's like completely incredible suffering where you just come like... There's no point in you implying suffering for yourself. Like, all suffering's all around you, and you're just focusing much more on just how you face that suffering. There's no really spaces for you to find bliss altogether that much, or for you to be applying your own suffering to yourself. Okay, so it changes those very, very extremes. But I'd say, in a general, I'd say, okay, that's sort of where I'd try to take a stab at it.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I liked when Lex asked Sam Harris this, and he sort of said, an indication of getting towards this answer, because it's not just one thing. You can't just be like, bloop, there it is if you never ask this when, everything is just top notch. Like you're living the most ideal peak sort of thing. You're probably not going to be asking this. You're probably just going to be living it. So maximizing for those moments for sure. But then apart from that, without avoiding the question as well. One, there's, totally like everyone has to find their own in one way. So mine would sort of be something like, you have to find your own, but it'll probably contain parts of accepting paradox. I think that's a really, really crucial one. And then, suffering would somehow come into it as well. But I would argue that by accepting paradox, you can include the suffering in there. Okay. But
okay. So here's
around the same.
Okay. So and then a harder one, meaning of love.
I just want to piss that word into love. Love is definitely in my top 10 list of shit words.
Below or above pivot?
It'll be below pivot, as in I hate pivot more.
Yeah.
But
still not a fan.
But yes, not a fan. Definitely not a fan.
Why do you reckon you're not a fan of it?
Yeah, just because it's everyone uses it so differently, and it means so many different things.
Yeah.
And so, words are fine. They're fun to play with and stuff. But when they start getting so useless like this, where you don't know, you have to fully explain what the meaning is, and it can be a word which is just used in so many different contexts. And then across cultures so differently. I always come up with the one that, to be boyfriend and girlfriend in Colombia, this is
you have to love.
You have to say te amo, which is I love you. It's like there's no stronger way of saying it. And I just went, like, I would not be saying that in English just to be your boyfriend or girlfriend. That's almost like, because
it can have levels. It can have like. And it doesn't take into account the absolute plethora of levels of like, I love a dog, or I love your family, or you love your partner. Like that is miles difference in what you're actually meaning in the word. Yeah, I agree. I think that the word love is not it's not well defined. It's one of those words where it's like, it's way too broad. Where's the other one that we talk about? Like trauma, like the word trauma. It's kind of like right?
that one's
like saying trauma,
expanded out a lot.
It's like, it's the expansion of what does it actually mean? Because if you think about love, let's say 1500s, what did that mean then? Did it mean like, well, you love that from a family perspective that, you're going to raise a kid and just have a family and live old and die. Is it fine nowadays to say like, well, I love my job more than you, so I'm going to do that more? Like, is it truly love? We just care more about that. You're more passionate about that. But here was my little take, and I wanted to get your idea on it because
please.
I had this question asked of me the other day as well.
Really?
Not too long ago. I had this question before, but it's like, why do you love me?
Okay.
So it's a different question. Why do you love me? Right? Which is also interesting. Like, how would you answer that? Right? And I've answered it in the past for many years, very different ways. And then I stumbled upon this answer, which I thought I kind of liked it because it tied it back to that meaning of life to some extent. Because mine was, I was saying the meaning of life, right? I had all this stuff about with a focus on suffering, so on reducing the suffering of others, right? So for me, I went, well, for me then, the meaning of love in a roundabout way would be, and so I was like, just another entity or object. So I'm saying another entity or object, so it could be a person, it could be an object, right? It could be an object that helps to soften the unavoidable suffering of life. That was my little take, because that to me seems more real. That to me seems more in tune with it, because you, let's say with a partner or your family, you say you love, and sure, that can mean a lot of other things. But I think if I had to think about it, I go, these are the sort of people I want to be with through the unavoidable suffering. Like, you want to go to something sucky? Okay, these people are going to be probably the group that you want to be with in supporting you in whatever way that may be. But you can find that from an object. Like, you might find it from a bike. Like, if you really enjoy bikes, you might go, I really love my bike. And if really question, why do you love your bike? I don't think it's the fact that it gives you the bliss side of things, which certainly it does. But I think the love comes from the unavoidable suffering that you might get because of it. So it might be because you're going faster, so you're not having to be delayed. Or it might be other suffering that you might say in terms of, oh, well, the wind in my face is better. Okay, maybe I'll say that into bliss. But to me, I was more treating it towards it's the fact that someone can soften or lessen the unavoidable suffering. It makes it more acceptable to go through with that. So, because for me, then I go, okay, well, if there's somebody who loves nothing, I don't think can go through life to find the meaning of a good life, let's just say, without it.
Okay.
So it's kind of like my little play on it, which is still something I'm totally thinking about. Because I also, I don't disagree with the word. I just don't think that the word is very well explained, especially in the context, and again, very much to an individual. Because somebody else can say, okay, well, love is whatever to me, right? Cool, I get that. But I think for me, it would be that softening of unavoidable suffering.
Okay.
Really my little take on it.
Yeah. Man, that's it's funny that you couched it in such a it's almost like it's couched in the negative. So it's not striving for the highest purpose or sort of all the words that are usually and that revelation, that divinity, that
Well, to me, it struck me, and I don't even know if this has been said exactly the same way by Jordan Peterson and a couple of others, but the way I kind of just thinking around it was, well, pretty much like the world sucks. Everyone sucks. Everyone, like, there's imbued evil in absolutely everyone if you let it control you, all this crappy stuff. Sure, we might find, like, really joyous moments and blissful moments, but they're almost like a pause in the continued suffering that just is life, right? Like, no one's going to escape the suffering. And I know what people might be thinking, mere mortalites might be like, oh, well, that's very negative. But I think if you just looked at it very logically, it's like, oh, well, this sucks. Or even to the very minutiae, you got to pay rates. You got to pay for your water bill. You got to go and do this. You got to go work. You got to, do all these sort of things. And in between, there's things that you find fun and you find meaningful, which I'm not taking away. But I'm saying, I think in having those other individuals, it kind of like takes away from all that negative that's always there. Or at least not takes it away, but softens it. It makes it at a lower level, so like a lower scale. And even at that, back to that, maybe what you're talking about with the meaning of life, like with the peaks and the troughs and stuff like that, maybe it's it makes the peaks higher and it softens the troughs.
Yeah. Me personally, I probably wouldn't put it in those ways. I don't know how I'd put it, but yeah, I wouldn't want to think of if someone asks, why do I love you? I'm not sure I'd want to be putting it in terms of like it's because you make things less shitty.
But actually, I often found myself getting that question, and when you say things like, oh, because you're pretty, because you make me happy.
Yeah.
The reality is, mate, there's a billion other people who are pretty. There's a lot of people who make you happy.
Damn,
that's not the difference.
A billion other people.
Yeah.
One's going around. Damn.
Billion. One in seven.
1 in 7.
See, I got mine in Africa. But You know what I mean? Like, I think that the description of saying, and again, this goes to me with a broadness. If you say, you make me happy, you make me this, that's fine, but that's still too many levels of platitude above. Like, it's too many, like, you can say that. That's the same thing as saying, like, you really love a ball or you really love money. Like, those descriptions are still very similar in that regard. So, definitely a work in progress.
Yeah,
this is,
agreed.
I've been asked this and I've thought about it many a time. Especially this, I reckon this is the topic that I most think about when I listen to Jordan Peterson talk about some other things around the whole, everyone's got some evil in them, blah, 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 blah. For me, sometimes, I don't know why it is, but I sometimes just go all the way inextricably to love and then how that reflects back on that. So,
hard topic, man.
Very hard topic. Yeah. So, I wanted to bring that up in the meanderings to thought, okay, there's going to be loose. There's not going to be an answer here. And I think that's the other thing as well. Like, there is no answer. That's correct. It's definitely, this is going to be like, if you ever ask yourself this question, like, you're going to have something that's completely different to other people. I think it's just, it's often interesting to also hear from other people as well.
Yeah.
And also the experience. I reckon the experience of people, you'll find widely different answers.
Yeah. I would almost say it's a state thing. Like, what kind of state you get in when you're with these people versus when you don't have them. So, and yeah, then maybe I can add the negative into that. So when I'm not with my family, so when I'm traveling, South America, yeah, then maybe I'll be in I sort of noticed this today when I chatted with them, a cool Colombian guy, but his English is, it was good. It was good enough. He could communicate, but just the way that he sort of clung on to me in essence and was like super chatty, super etc. made me think, I sort of get him. He's been here a year and a half. He might not have a strong relationship with anyone here, so I could see why he would want to really try and make friends with me or just speak about anything, to be honest, because maybe he doesn't get that many opportunities.
True. Yeah. But here's a twist in the final storyline here.
Okay, good.
For both of those questions, do they even matter? Do you think they even matter? Does it matter to know what the meaning of love is and what the meaning to life is to you? Do you think it matters?
No, not particularly. No, I always put more emphasis on action over understanding in a way. You need understanding to create good action, but I think I could totally imagine a person who just really can't grasp concepts, can't think super deeply into these types of matters, barely can use English, let alone deconstruct words.
Yeah.
But if they're living a just life, a righteous life where they are helping out their friends, they're a kind person, they, minimize the suffering of themselves and others. Yeah, I don't think they need to get into that. Yeah,
I kind of landed at that saying myself, like, is it important? Sort of. My answer was like, sort of, but then I sort of think, what other things like regret, I think, would be more important. Like, to minimize regret would be more important than the meaning of life.
It's important when you have none of it, I guess. So if you have no love in your life,
then it's important.
I think you're going to be asking, what is love? What is this thing? If you have no meaning in your life...
Do I need it? Do I not need it?
You're going to be questioning yourself that a lot. And in that case, hell yeah, you need to find out some sort of answer to be able to muddle your way through the next, X amount of years in your life, for sure. But if you're... if you get to a okay level where you don't need to be thinking about it, that's also fine as well.
There you go.
Mere mortal approved.
Mere mortal approved.
We've solved it.
There you go.
We've solved love. We've solved meaning of life.
We've solved
What's
everything.
Next? We just need to figure out. Okay, here was a question I had the other day. If you could ask one person and they couldn't lie to you, they had to tell you the truth. One question, any person from history, what would you ask, and who would the person be? So you could solve many mysteries of, did this, maybe you could ask,
like, did you shoot JF Kennedy?
That's immediately what I came to. You could also...
I think, it wouldn't... This is like one of those that, the first couple of things come to your mind seem interesting, but in the end, looking down at more things that I'm just thinking through, sure, it would be interesting. Does it change anything? No, like, it doesn't change anything. Maybe if it's a particular murder or someone stole something and you got something
deep into your life. Or would you just ask, something really personal to... that maybe someone screwed you over when you were, 15 or something, and it's just been there in the back of your mind. Did I treat this person badly, or did they treat me badly? Yeah. And then you can just find out for definite.
Did you have an answer for that?
No, I didn't come up with one in particular. I thought I would probably just go to one which was, almost sort of inconsequential in a way, but be fun to ask something of George Orwell, of maybe there is a controversy related to his book. Because in that one, in the question, it's the they can't lie implicit thing. So you can find out something that maybe... So you want to ask a question where...
Maybe nobody knew.
Either nobody knew or they were wanting to lie. So, but then you could also just get a really crap answer, which is like, I don't know.
I think I would like... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd want to ask a question where I'm getting a definite answer one way or another as well.
Like, again, for me, just out of interest, and I don't know what stream of mind I'm currently thinking that this is, like, interesting, but I would ask someone like a Hitler or Stalin or Kim Jong-un or someone like that. I would ask him if they do feel remorse for what they did or are doing. I think that would be a very interesting question to hear the answer to. Not for the fact that it can have any consequence or anything, but I know that Jordan and a couple of other people always talk about, like, yeah, that's like true evil, like real evil. And I truly wonder, like even if there's super evil people, did they ever feel any remorse for it? Like, you can have killers and psychopaths who don't have any remorse. I get that. But I don't feel like they were. They weren't psychopaths. They were just humans who believed in something. So I'd love to know if they were like, oh, yeah, no, I do actually feel shit that we've killed so many people. Actually, I wanted to go this way.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, shit. Okay, dang. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
or maybe it'd be a question of, like, if I could present them some evidence and be like, hey, this is how it's going to turn out for you, stopping short of their death, because then they'll probably be like, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to change that.
Yeah.
But if you took a look at yourself, Stalin, at the height of your power, the height of the killing...
Do you still want to continue with it?
Would that be something that you'd want to do? Yeah, something... That'd be
it'd be super interesting to me to say, like, imagine if you could ask the question of Hitler that, like, this is going to happen. Is this what you actually want to happen? And I genuinely think there might be like, no, I don't think so. Because I think a lot of those power players and, like, when they call, like, the most evil people, they would have had groups and a lot of other people who supported them to get to that level, right? And there's probably decisions that are blamed on that person who, like, they probably had no even doing it. Now, were they evil? Sure. They got to a point they were doing evil shit. Totally understand that. Like, I'm not taking that away. But I feel like if you presented that as a question to them, like, would you do this? I reckon you get some interesting answers.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, the accountability thing. Oh, I just didn't know about it, etc., etc. When you're that high up, yeah, you should be knowing. You should have some sort of radar to be like, oh, yeah, the Exxon oil spill, we had reports of, this was a safety factor or something that got ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should probably dive into that rather than just be like, yeah, sweep it under the rug. Yeah, cool.
There you go. Well, all right. Well, that was the big questions and meanderings today. Definitely meandered on some deep thoughts, as well as some dreams, folks. So, me mortalites out there, have you thought about the meaning of your life, the meaning of dreams, the meaning of love? There's actually, I'm going to give you a final answer for all of them. Dream about the mere mortals, love the mere mortals, and the meaning of life is watching mere mortals. That's all you got to do. Watch and listen at the same time while you stream as much Satoshis to us. That's all you got to do. Yeah. Stream as much Satoshi as you can. Make sure you are trying to connect. Look, if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or watching on YouTube, all power to you. Awesome. But you're going to be finding us on a lot more other platforms, right? Podcasting 2.0. Karen over here is putting out... Actually,
making our way across there. It's
if you don't know what we're talking about, right? Value for Value podcast is a podcast Karen's actually put together, and there's probably a couple of episodes out right now. If you actually want to know what it's all about, if you just want to understand it from a very layman, general, like why we would do that, why you would do that, what's the value? Is it money? Find out. Go listen to the podcast.
It's not.
Anyway, that's all for now, folks. We'll leave it at that. Meanderings. Juan out.
Karen out.